Well, we can get started. I have been asked to step in for Kami today, so thank you guys for being here and being on Zoom. So we will start as we always do with any bucket fills. I know I have a 1 or 2, but I'll open up the group first.
I have food in my mouth, sorry. But I was gone last week and Ryan stepped in for me. And I had a few closings, so he tended those for me.
Sweet.
And he did stuff for me, so I'm thankful.
So you can do what, party all weekend?
Sure. Cool. Awesome. Like Rick always says, always good to have a partner or someone that can
Cover for you.
help cover, support your business. Offers a lot of flexibility.
Want to bucket fill Derek and Kari, I think, and Andrea, I forget the other woman's name, Christy maybe, for our boat building through investment, last week. It was so incredible. It was really cool to listen to how many different perspectives there were on everything. But if you guys haven't watched it or you weren't present, go online and watch it immediately. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was my bucket fill for Derek as well, because he's here and he's our favorite guy from the panel. But no, I had as a talking point too. I just thought it was super digestible. Like it was inspiring both from your personal business, like how you can apply it if you have investors looking to buy, but also how you can personally apply it if you want to begin investing in real estate. And it made it, I don't know, made it not feel like such a daunting task. Like it just made it feel really attainable that you can start really, I don't want to say at any point, but you can start now. Like there's things you can do and different things you can do to get that ball rolling. So I just thought it was a really approachable way of talking about it, that it wasn't like this big high level and I'm this real estate mogul. It's like, how do you do that first one? And then where do you go from there? And that's what I really enjoyed about it. So.
Well, thanks. I was gonna fill Kami and Katie and the Market Center, Heather and Lydia, for allowing us the opportunity and setting it up like that, because I know, like, I feel like when I'm talking about things that it does, like, sometimes it can be too one-dimensional, and with other people on the panel, I feel like then it really does open it up. And I might do my way, and there's, if you talk to 50 investors, there's going to be like probably 48 different strategies, and the only reason the other 2 aren't the same is because they're like spouses of the other, or something like that. So it was good to have that, and it was a good opportunity, and I've had a lot of fun doing it too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like a couple of things, unless other people have something to share. Like personally, as I went, I would say in 5 years in this business, it was one of the best meetings, trainings I've ever been to. Again, just for all the reasons I kind of just shared, but I've been to a ton, and I think you can always pull things from trainings, of course, but like that one, I just walked out really inspired. So it was super cool. So I highly recommend you watch it. And then what was my other point on that? Value proposition. Like I can tell you, coming from another brokerage that I was at for 4 years, we didn't have, we did a lot of trainings in our group. Our sales meetings like this were well attended. We had trainings every Thursday. So it wasn't like a company that didn't have trainings, but we never talked like that. Like that wasn't our mindset at the previous brokerage. And I'd be willing to bet, and I'll open this up to folks that have come from other offices, like at other companies, I get, you're focused on buying and selling real estate, helping your clients buy and sell real estate. Like here, we certainly make it top of mind to build your own wealth, to build your own portfolio, to invest in things like that, and just different avenues of building your business. So that, I just think that's a big value proposition that we have here, because that's so top of mind at our office, in our Butler group, and our Market Center. It's very unique. So, I think I'm super proud of that. And that's one thing I've been very enlightened to in the last year or so that I've been here. I've just, even though haven't gone down some of those roads yet, like it's in my mind, it feels more attainable and it's just more actionable right now for me. And that's just stuff that just for the first 4 years, I would be in a very different place if I would have started here because I would be down some of those roads. Now I'm just starting to think about it. So I think something that's super cool about us here at our office. So that's just a plug. But I'll open it up if anyone else has had those thoughts or can share experiences against other brokerages too. So cool. Awesome. Well, that covers that. But any other bucket fills? I know that was a big one for the wealth building panel. So.
I'll bucket fill the group coaching on Mondays. Been fun to see more and more people come in and just like the consistency and I don't know that like kind of real conversations we get to have at the start of the week. So it kind of gets you focused. So yeah.
Awesome. I'd throw that right back to you guys, kind of the core group that's been there, Chris, Maureen, Gina, Zach. I'm missing someone. Maddie, yes, that's usually there. I think it inspired that group. So thank you guys. So,
And it's great what you've done in the workstations back there to bring all of you guys in here, and I think that's great.
cool. Last one more. Gotta have one more in the room. The old Keamy waited out.
I got one.
Yes.
I want to bucket fill my team. I had an open house on Saturday and I had a pretty tight schedule to run to a fashion show right afterwards. And they were awesome at wrapping that up and just the communication. And then we were able to get accept an offer either that night or Sunday morning. So yeah, Jolene's team, Paige and Wendy, thank you so much.
Nice. Sweet. Thank you, man.
Along those lines, I'll mention too, it's because she said open house. So we didn't, we're gonna list a house last year in Victoria at 650 and we listed it at 785. This year, I know, isn't that fun? And so we got 2 showings instead of 15 because my clients didn't listen to my recommendation. But as a result, I put an open house on Saturday. I had one scheduled for Sunday. We went on Saturday because there wasn't, buyer came in on Saturday and bought it on Monday, full price. So
From the open?
Definitely, yeah, from the open, not, he's a licensed commercial agent, so he's representing himself, but it worked out pretty slick just to have the open. A lot of people over the weekend, even with the crummy weather, came to the open on Saturday and Sunday. So it'd be really good to be able to do those again.
Yeah, I was talking with an agent this week about it a little bit too. I think if you do open houses as part of your business, either you don't have a listing or feel like agents that have listings aren't doing opens because of the market, I would challenge it just to be proactive with it. Call the agents that have the listings and say, hey, do you mind if we do an open? They'll talk to the seller, maybe they will. So maybe they weren't planning on one, maybe they haven't thrown it out, hey, I've got an open I need filled on Saturday, but maybe they would put one in for you to do. I'll yield to some of the folks that have a lot more listings, but
Well, now's the time, because if a house doesn't sell the first weekend, then you have to do something else.
Yep.
So now's the time to get out there and do them.
But be proactive, call those listing agents and see if they'd be willing to open one up for you and ask the sellers.
Today, we're sending out the flyer to the neighbors, of course, and I met like 5 of them in the open house. So once they get my flyer, they already met me and decided they don't like me, so I won't get them, but the other ones.
Because I did Sherry.
The flyer's got Sherry's picture on it. She's the real motion behind this operation.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick. Sweet. What was next? Upcoming events. So upcoming trainings. We have a luxury panel this Thursday. Wheel of Life workshop. Katie, do you know what's behind that one a little bit?
It's going to be led by Jen Briggs.
Put you on the spot.
No, you're totally fine. It's gonna be led by Jen Briggs, and I think it's mainly going through like lining up your personal and professional goals.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I would guess with that. So personal and professional alignment, that Wheel of Life workshop, next Tuesday, the 10th. So
Does that luxury say 1 o'clock lake, KW Lakes?
1 to 2,
Yes.
1:30 to 2:30.
That, it's actually just 1 to 2. Luxury panel is at KW Lakes tomorrow, but Kami is facilitating it.
And it's also on Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah, Zoom as well. Cool. Then trainings after that. So next Wednesday, we have free CE and it will be here, I believe. So it'll be our office and that's at,
That's at 12:30 to 1:30, 1 CE credit. It's hosted by Branch in Property Investigations. They've been recommended from Colleen Schultz and a few other agents here. And so it'll be like basically immediately following team meeting, you'll have a half an hour and then that begins. And it's only in person. Registration is now required. There is a Google form registration that I've just posted to Facebook, our private group, earlier this morning, and I will send out in an email later this afternoon.
Just a side note on that, that gentleman is in my Bible study Friday mornings. He is awesome.
Sweet.
Thanks, Doctor. He's very experienced.
cool.
Good to get.
Awesome.
And everyone probably needs
Yeah.
CEs.
Crunch time for
It
CE.
is.
Got about a month to
CE.
go. So a little over a month. So let's stay on top of those. If you're not sure how many hours you have or sure where to go, let somebody on the leadership know. We can help guide you in the right place, but Pulse Portal is the place for that. But yeah, make sure all your hours are done. And then lastly, training the following Tuesday, the 17th, stay top of mind with 19 to connect. So fostering your database type of a mastermind there, or training, excuse me. So cool.
Speaking of CEs, if you haven't looked through the continuing education guide to completion that was sent out a couple weeks ago, please review it. It goes through what requirements are needed. If this is your first June, nothing is required. If this is your second June being a licensed real estate agent, there are 30 CE credits required. If you have been in the business for more than 2 years, there are 15 credits required. All credits are due on June 15th. If you are a commercial agent, you do not need to take a few of those things. I've communicated with most commercial agents, but if you have questions, let me know. But there's a Minnesota required module that this year is history of diversity in homeownership. That's 3.75 credits. There's a fair housing, 1 CE credit, and agency law, 1 CE credit. All of those are required. So you have 5.75 credits you have to do no matter what, unless you're a commercial agent, or unless this is your first June. And then after that, everything else is an elective to get you to that 15 or 30 credits. I'm sending out a second guide a little bit later today that goes over a lot more providers than was even provided in this list, and some more classes that are on their calendar. So keep a lookout for that. But I start my CE Smart Plan on May 17th. So just look forward to continued communication from yours truly, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help or pull up your transcript or look through things, okay? Thank you. Oh, gosh, I forgot there's a video next.
Automatically in the video. Well, Red Day. So Red Day coming up.
So our red day is May 12th, which is next Thursday. And we are actually joining the other 3 Butler Group market centers to partner with Aon. And they have been working in the Minneapolis Twin Cities area for for a very long time, specifically building community through affordable housing. There's lots more information on them on the registration page. So if you go to that to register, you can kind of read all about what their mission is, when they started, and then the 2 projects that we are working on as our market center on Thursday, May 12th. But there's essentially a 9 a.m. to noon slot, and then a 1 to 4 slot that you can volunteer for, or you can volunteer for both. Please do register so we know how many people are coming. And then there are some items that we need to supply or bring with us if we can, like some smaller hand tools, drills, screws, drills and screwdrivers specifically, when we're setting up some patio furniture. And then like work gloves, any heavy duty rakes or wheelbarrows, gardening tools, that sort of thing, as we'll be doing a little spring cleanup, mulching and planting some flower beds as well. There are t-shirts available in the lobby if you guys haven't seen on that table with a donation at KW Cares local fund. So please stop by and grab one of those so that we can be all decked out in Red Day gear that day. And then also separately from our actual in-person Red Day next Thursday, Keller Williams just launched a campaign for the Ukraine Crisis Relief Fund, and they are partnering with ShelterBox. ShelterBox is a organization that basically provides shelter and essential needs to people that are found themselves in natural disaster or crisis. This relief fund just actually launched on Monday, and Keller Williams, we announced that we're partnering with them to have a goal of raising $1 million by May 16th. So this is actually being posted, or it actually already is posted now on our private Facebook group. I will send it out via email today as well. So look for that if you're interested in donating and getting involved with that cause too. Anything else about Red Day?
No, I think that covers it. But yeah, just please, if you can bring all the stuff listed up there. I guess there's lots of patio furniture to put together, so we do need some extra hand tools, would be great.
Is everyone signed up for Red Day?
I am.
Red Day.
So it was like the morning session was like pretty much mulching and planting stuff, and then the
How do you-
afternoon was like construction of the patio furniture.
Stuff afternoon.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. Yep.
Awesome. Cool. So instead of me coming up with content, thought I'd do it easy but have you guys come up with it? So what I like these meetings, what I always find most value in these is when we create some dialogue, get some different perspective from different agents. So what I thought I'd do is I've got a few topics that I can certainly kick it off with, but throw it up there. What's going on in your businesses that's either presented a challenge or a unique situation, or maybe something you're struggling with. It could be a contract. It could be a situation with an agent. It could be out of business development. It could be, I've got a buyer that's buying a house with a pool. What do I do with it? It doesn't matter the topic. I've got a couple that have come up in our meetings, but we can certainly, I like to just throw it up on the board and then we'll just kind of pick through them and get insights. And Jim's here to offer his wisdom as well, but we can also hear what agents digest from that too. So we've got one.
Yeah, the market, obviously, we've been talking, and if anybody was at the team meeting last week with Jake, he talked specifically about how there's a little shift happening at this very, very moment. And so I talked with him after, and I think it's easiest to present it this way, okay? And I've talked to the team about this as well, because this is what we're dealing with, and it needs immediate attention, what's going on with the pricing. So let's say we have 3 houses that are identical to each other to make this easy. Last year, so we're gonna list a house now. Derek's gonna list a house now. We'll use Derek. And last year, he looks at a comp, and there's a comp, the identical house. It sold for $500,000 and it closed in June last year, right? And Derek's gonna list this house now in February this year. When he looks at that, he says, okay, that one was listed at $475. It went into multiple offers and it sold for $500 in June of last year. It would make sense for me to list this new comp, exactly the same house around 500, because that would be the high point, right? So he does. He listed in February at 500,000, 3.15% interest rate, for a 30-year fixed at the time. He has 15 offers and he sells it for 550 in February. Okay, scheduled to close in April. So it closes in April. And the good news is that he got that thing sold. It went up in value 10% in the period of essentially 2 months, because that was the time from when it sold to they closed. And now we're at 550, 10% increase. Now, Derek is going to list another house, an identical one. And so he goes back and he looks and says, my goodness, this house, and his clients are saying our neighbor's house, which is the exact same as ours, just sold for 550 last month. And we're going to list next week. What should we list as? And Derek's super smart and he agrees with his clients, being facetious. And he says, yeah, let's list it. Let's list it at that 550. And here is the warning. Then Derek proceeds to say, when I list it at 550, you're going to have 20 showings. We're going to have a bunch of offers and it's going to go for 10% above. Because the clients are saying, look at all these houses are going for 10% above. Why don't we list it at 575 or 600? And Derek's like, no. We want to list it at this price because we want to gain the same attention. If that happens and he lists it at 550 and he gets all those showings and it sells for 10% above, that house just appreciated in value 20% in 4 months. That is not realistic. That is not likely. It's not probable. And so as realtors, it's super important that we look at what's happened. And also Derek brought this up, and this is why I bring you into it. He brought this up a month ago because he's smarter than most people. And he said that the buying power, he's talking about buying power. Right now, there's over $100,000 difference in buying power between the 5.25% interest rate and the 3.125% interest rate. So we got these variables coming into play. So when we're looking at comping out and where we're going to list at, if I were to list it, and Derek, now we're going to make him super smart. If he were to list it, he would probably list it somewhere in that 530, 540 range. If the clients want to try to draw some attention, maybe even 525, right? And see if they can draw multiple offers and get that thing sold for 560. Because if he puts it on at 550 and they have 2 offers and it doesn't happen to go, it's on at 550 the next week and the next week and the week after that. And people are freaking out right now if they're on for over a week. So the prices are going to go down, right? That's a simple way of saying be very careful. Things are really, really different, and don't keep pushing the market when the buyers have already pushed the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts on that?
And you're saying a big part of that is because of the interest rate going up?
It's just a factor of it.
A part of the problem is that, so traditionally in the spring, we would look at, if we were going to list a house in the spring, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong or you do it differently. If I were to list a house in the spring and I saw a house that sold last year, the exact same house at 500 and sold June last year, if it's April or May, I'm going to push as a realtor, I'm going to push that price. I'm not going to list it at 500. I'm going to list it at 520 or 525 because it's now spring of the next year and we're going to push the price. The problem is that a whole bunch of houses sold in January and February in multiple offers and closed in April. Yeah. And that was not us. That was the buyers setting that price and pushing the market all the way through early. Yeah. So now our standard on a lot of these has already been pushed through. So be very careful when we're assessing and make sure that we're not saying it's even possible that a house is going to go up 20% in a period of months.
Yeah, hey, and hey, Rick.
Yep.
I showed 2 properties this morning and both had been listed here for $395 each, different locations. And in the last 2 days, they've been dropped $20,000 to $375. So that's to your point.
It's probably because if you went back and looked at the comps, they probably did exactly what we're talking about. They just listed it just a little too high. And now, to Heather's question, they listed it so too high. And now all those buyers that were available to purchase that in February can purchase at $100,000 less right now, with their qualifications. So it's really, really, just be careful. It's still a seller's market. We still have an imbalance. So it still has a great potential to continue to sell these homes, but we have to be careful with.
Anyone else have stuff going on in their biz?
Rick, do you feel like it's wise to price it a little bit below where you think it should be? then?
That depends entirely upon what your client wants and what you want. If you want competition, you feel like there's still going to be a benefit to having the competition, which I feel there is, because it's much better to have 3 buyers, even if they're only 10,000 over or so that you can say, oh, out of these 3 buyers, I'm now selecting. It may not be only price anymore. It's going to be a lot of other things that are going to be, hey, this deal's going to go through. Their financing is more solid. Inspection, no inspection, those sorts of things. So being able to select the qualifications of the buyer, I think is tremendously advantageous. And making sure we're conveying to our clients, like the one in Victoria I just told you about, we are already at the very, very highest probable point in this market right now. You are at the top. You went to the top of the mountain, you're standing on the flag. I mean, we're there, so don't expect that it's going to go any further. So.
Yeah, be conservative with that. Don't. Absolutely. Cool.
I just want to add one thing. And this was a point Jake made last week, is to, as a second part of this conversation, to be really careful about how we are communicating expectations to our clients. To continue to talk about the market as it has been for the last 6 months. Like, you can expect so many showings and go away for the weekend, we'll be in multiples by Sunday. That we need to be really careful about how we're setting up our clients' expectations in a shifting market, and let them know, there may be that, or there may be factors here that are causing it to slow. And I'm not entirely sure how we frame that, but it is a different conversation we need to be having with our clients than we did a few months ago.
And that's a great point that Wendy makes. And this is an easy, quick little, discussion point with the clients, is that remember how fast things changed from January to February this year. Remember, that's only 5 months ago when everyone was watching the market, and all of a sudden things went nuts. That's how the market is, like a volatile stock at the moment. It's going to shift up and down very fast. We saw it go up really fast. So let's just pay attention to that. And it's not entirely in our control.
You ever talk, how do you talk about multiple offers with the seller? Like, you're at your listing presentation, you're talking about pricing. This could be for anybody.
I sold a townhouse yesterday. Just a tiny little townhouse in Bloomington. We listed at 190. We had 2 offers at 195. One with 10% down, one 20% down. And then we had one offer for 20% down for 210,000. But they needed to wait a day to get us the pre-approval because Monday was a religious holiday. And because it was a religious holiday, my seller said, absolutely, we'll wait a day. We waited. As we were discussing, does this look like a solid offer? That 210 offer sent a text and said, sorry, we're withdrawing our offer. We found another property. And so we picked the 195 with 20% down. I mean, it was great, but my point on that is that we have very emotional buyers, and I'm not seeing everything that comes through stick. So I think you have to kind of hold it with wisdom. And if something looks funky, wait.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of due diligence. That's why we're here, right? A lot of due diligence. If you do get multiple offers, because you may have optically 2 apples to apples offers, but the agent good, is the lender good? What's the buy? Give you the story of the buyer, things like that, and vetting that out, relaying that to your seller, and helping them make the most informed decision, for sure.
We had a buyer locking on Friday using MHFA as down payment assistance. And so you have to lock through MHFA, and they missed the deadline for the lock because we just got the appraisal back by 20 minutes. It was 6.1 on Friday, and on Monday when they locked, it was 6.25. So it's just a perfect example of things are changing really fast, so.
We had some buyers look at a property in Chan at 425 over the weekend, and they were debating whether or not to write, and I had been in contact with the listing agent. They ended up accepting an offer, and we knew the home was at least underpriced. At least it looked like it should comp out higher. I told them I thought it was going to sell for at least 475. They ended up getting an offer at 485. Okay. He said though that they had 3 offers at 480 or higher, which I thought that was instructive, of 5 offers total. Okay. So I'm kind of working on this theory. So I've been going with the idea that right now there are still buyers in the market who've been beat like somewhere between like 2 and 15 times, right, on all these houses and multiple offers. Those buyers are the ones who are going to need or they feel the need that they have to buy the next house. And that's the buyer that's going to be willing to pay, you know, $60,000 over on a $400,000 house. And I mean, I really truly believe that we must be getting to the end of that group of buyers who've been beat up so much, because we did see it last year where there was like all this really pent up activity or demand. And then all of like, as they're coming on, they're selling really high, really high, really high. And then we got a little bit later in the year, things were becoming a little bit more realistic. So I don't know. I mean, my clients made their own decision. I couldn't fault them for not writing on the property because they felt like 475 wasn't going to do it. So I don't know. I mean, hang in there, keep your buyers on the hook and just tell them to be patient. And I think we'll see it.
Yeah, same situation like buyers where like I can't justify the price that it might sell for. So whether the other buyers that are offering way over, whether they're being ill-advised, whether they're just sick of it, they'll throw it, whatever. But you know, doing our fiduciary duty, our clients, like, this is like where I see this, like, could it go a little bit higher? I get it. And same deal. My clients didn't write last week. They're like, I just see it in this range and I just don't think it's gonna do it. It's like, I can't disagree with that. Like, if you want to write there, I absolutely will. But, you know, and I think it ended up going well over us. But I think there is, to your point, I think there's more of that where buyers are like, not just gonna show up and throw out a number. Like, they're gonna be a lot more cerebral about it, I guess, maybe you'd say.
And I think Derek, one of the best values that he offered his client is that what did he say in the very beginning? He said, I feel like this house was underpriced. So he knew, because he's really old and done this for a long time. But more likely he ran some quick comps, right? And found out that, yeah, this is where this house is starting. And I probably would have, I always look at it, where would I have listed it at? Because we list a lot of houses, right? If I would have listed that house at 450 and it's listed at 425, you're going to give your client different advice as to what's going to happen with multiple offers, and you're likely going to be accurate. So if you go in and it's the other way around, that house is at 475 and you would have listed it at 450, well, why don't we just wait and see what happens over the weekend, because it might not sell and you might be the only buyer who's writing on this one, you know? So, but that he did right away is just super important for our clients.
Cool. I've got a couple other topics unless someone has something else we want to just throw out there.
And I didn't sell anything, so that's great. Right. Patience. I know.
Well, at least you didn't write on 15 there.
Zero wasted time. Jeff.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
So
Yeah.
with 56% of listings right now, with offers waiving inspection contingencies, when you're listing, is everyone having their sellers do a pre-listing inspection to protect their seller, or are you guys just waiving inspection? Curious.
I have been trying to convince every seller to do it. I just think that we are going to have a pretty significant after effect of not doing inspections that we're going to be dealing with. And Jim is going to see it. So, you know, it's going to filter down. You know,
We'll start to see some lawsuits over the next couple of years.
for sure. You know, the inspections are tremendously advantageous for the seller and the buyer. And if you can get a good inspector in there ahead of time, at least it gives the buyer the comfort that, hey, this has been done. I now know this about the house. And traditionally, anybody who does an inspection stays in the deal or has access to it is gonna stay in the deal, versus backing out because of the other uncertainties and everything else going on.
It's worth the small investment, $400 or $500.
Now, it really is.
Saves a lot of problems later.
And what's the biggest objection? The biggest objection is now we know all the information about the house, right?
I was gonna say, what do you say to them when they say, what if we find something big?
Right.
I would say, if you find something big, it's going to come up anyway. And either it's going to
disclose it.
come up before closing, or it's gonna come up as a lawsuit after closing,
Yeah.
Right.
or arbitration. or
And
whatever.
either way,
Now,
wouldn't it be
deal with it
better
later.
now? Wouldn't it be better now? This is why I always, on any house with stucco, I will not list it without a stucco inspection. Because there's too much unknown. Rather than getting into a transaction and having the house under contract, wouldn't it be better to know that you have a $30,000 issue there before you agree to, to sell the house to someone for a set price?
And just assume or wait on that buyer to have remorse 25 days in.
Absolutely.
Get escrow, like, shit, what did we do?
But see, Rick, you said a
On their
$30,000 problem, the buyer's gonna see $120,000 problem.
Exactly.
That's the other thing, that's genius, because that is us knowing the true information about what can be done and what can, that could save the sellers an exorbitant amount of money and all the buyers running away. Because you're right. I mean, if you look at what's happened in the past, I mean, you talk to someone, a neighbor, and they're like, oh, I spent 120 grand redoing my house.
Right. Their house was four-sided stucco and this one's got one side.
Yeah, the front only.
But it's the same thing.
Yeah, or they had to tear all the stucco off because of the problems, and we only have to address 4 different areas, so.
Yeah.
Good point.
Is he gonna follow up on that? Good.
No, good.
Awesome.
Maureen, was that you saying the 56% or something?
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the things I think, and the same thing when we look at our trend report, right, for our KW and everything, is that information we have to remember just in our fast changing market is what was before, right? So as we know that conversation, and I've seen some people using it for marketing stuff as well, is to recognize, yeah, that was a month ago, and in the way things are changing so quickly, as a good fiduciary, and this kind of goes back, it might be to say, here's the deal. You need to know that when you're offering that appraisal gap, you're buying a house that the bank says is not worth that much, right? And maybe you need to do that, or maybe you don't need to do that in pending situations. I just think as we look at things backwards, we have to remember that things are changing quickly forward, right? The interest rates are completely different than they were 2 months ago.
2 days ago, that's good.
Jeff, I heard, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and this guy had this great title. It was like director of, inflationary whatever, like it sounded really bright. So the guy talked about all signs right now in front of us point to that we are headed toward a recession. And for all of us, the most recent example of that is 2008 or 2000, what happened between 2006 and 2010, right? The meltdown. And his point on that was that might be our most recent example, and yet that was the largest recession since the Great Depression. So, 90 years or 80 years time. And his point was that there's no reason to believe that what we're headed toward is as significant as that. And remember that a recession is defined as, and I'm not smart, so it's like defined as something like consecutive quarters of like a down GDP, I think, or like non-growth in the GDP. So like to keep that in mind, we're not headed toward complete system failure here. might be headed toward some different circumstances for the average consumer. And their expectation was that the real estate market might see a lag in pricing increases, but that they're not expecting prices to drop. And really that's fueled by the low inventory across the nation. Yeah.
All the PAT, go ahead.
You're gonna do something before this. So how do you like make a way for yourself in certain areas where that are like dominated by different brokerages?
Find dominated by different brokers. Like, how do you know? Like, what's your criteria for establishing that?
Like Lakeshore or different neighborhoods in Edina, different neighborhoods in St. Louis Park, like.
One person at a time.
Yeah.
One house at a time. Start with one and then absolutely capitalize on that one. You got it right, Colleen. You gotta get in.
For sure. I just talked with an agent this morning that is almost kind of had this, because I asked the question, she got a couple things coming up in her neighborhood. I was like, how are you doing it? Like, did you do this X, Y, Z? Did you market? Do you do events or whatever? And she's like, honestly, my neighborhood has someone's on the HOA board, and like, I never thought I'd get a listing in here. She got one, and now she might have 2 more coming. And I told her, make a plan, market the shit out of that. Excuse me, language. But take advantage of it. Hit every possible step along the way. Just sold, under contract, upcoming soon, mail. Like, you be like, if you get 3 in a matter of a month, I mean, you become the neighborhood expert. Like, but it starts, like to Rick's point, it starts with 1.
What I'm hearing him say is that all that stuff that he just said is better than the other realtors already in the neighborhood.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and that's like, how are they the expert? Are you just pulling a radius and seeing, okay, they have some market share? I mean, there's a lot of that factors into it. I think, you know, Lakeshore and some of that's a little different of a market to crack. You know, I'm certainly not in that marketplace, so I will yield to others that have dealt with that. I think there's an experience level. I think that kind of comes with that. But like, if you're just targeting 300 houses in a neighborhood, look at the turnover rates, look at what agents are doing business there. How do you find, hey, how much are they doing 90% of the listings in there? Okay, maybe that might deter you to pick a different 300 houses. But if they have market share and they're doing 15 to 20%, that means there's 80% that still get them, you know? So
It also means if they've got a light blue sign and there's like 10 of them in Maple Grove and and you go in there, that team is trying to manage all of those listings. How many listings do you have right now? How important is that client going to be to you? How much better service you're going to provide to them? Then obviously do better marketing than they do.
So sell your value, and then I would just say it's consistency. Like, if you're talking about marketing, farming, some of that, like consistency. How are you touching houses? Email, door knocking, calling, mailers, and when you do get that listing, how does that? If you just send one mailer, you're not going to build. Like, it's got to be that consistent process around it. You're really kind of farming a pocket or a neighbor or a specific type of property. Cool. Good question. I love this question. I'll throw this out there. I'm curious to see where people go. So Katie, line 50, yeah, here we go. So mortgage financing contingency. I love to hear what people do for their buyers. What's best for your buyer? I certainly have my opinion. I've spent a lot of time in this. And or what do you think is best for your seller? So let's just start with what do you want to start with? Which side?
I think the written statement's great for both sides.
I agree with that 100%.
Because I had an experience years ago, but it was the lender blew it.
But if the lender blows it and they don't qualify, they don't qualify.
They still qualify. They just didn't have their act together, and we were to contract.
Like, how close? When did you find out? How close were you to closing?
Oh, geez. Yeah. Sorry. And it wasn't a lender that I usually work with. And I'm used to working with the lender to work with, so kind of played, but I didn't probably didn't follow up like I should have.
Yeah.
That written statement, I mean, it's a week before.
Yeah, week to 2 weeks, depending on.
We're good to go with that. And if it we're not good to go, then correct me if I'm wrong, but that's really when the earnest money truly goes hard. Right? I mean, so if there are things that are wrong with it, then it comes out a week before.
Sure.
Also for the buyer, when that time comes, they don't have to provide the written statement.
What happens?
If they don't provide the written statement, the seller has the right to cancel the purchase agreement after that at any point, and then refund the earnest money back to the buyer.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things, if there is an issue with the lender, there's an underwritten, standard, there's something that's not met, that they need an extra day, then yeah, you want to try to either get that adjusted, but your buyer has control of that.
So you're a week before closing, written statement doesn't come in. Are you advising your seller to cancel?
No, I am calling the lender first, then the listing agent to find out what's going on.
Yep.
First of all, they're asking 2 days in advance of that. The ordinance asking, make sure you've got this written statement coming because it gets missed.
Written statement doesn't come in, seller doesn't want to cancel. What happens?
Well, 2 things. I did have one that just went to the end without the written statement. We closed, everything was fine.
For sure.
Yep.
You can close, you can absolutely still close.
Yeah, it's still closed. It was fine. The other is written statement comes in late, and after that time, the buyer doesn't get the earnest money back, get it back out.
Okay. Yep. Written statement doesn't come in, you don't close. What happens?
Just because you don't close, you're still under contract, right? On time. You don't close on time.
You scroll down to like 105.
That's a good question.
If written statement is not
105.
provided by the specified date, seller may cancel at seller's option, purchase agreement canceled at any time, like Rick said. Earnest money refunded to buyer. Okay, 110, if the written statement is not provided, seller is not canceled, and this purchase agreement by the closing date, buyer and seller immediately sign a cancellation, earnest money refunded to buyer. So this is where I think my personal opinion, I think written statements are a disadvantage to sellers. If you want my opinion, you guys can see this how you see fit, but I see this as a free out for the buyer every single time. I love it when the listing agent wants this for my buyer. I love it.
And if you don't have that, the buyer, because of the finance contingency, has a free out until 1 minute before closing.
Like you said, you can still close, of course, right?
But even if that's not in there, so if you go back up to 76, 75.
Yep.
So you go back up here to the buyer cannot secure financing at any time, then they cancel and they get their earnest money back.
Isn't it a
So
free out no
either-
matter what?
Either way, they're getting their earnest money back.
Unless it's forfeited to the seller.
I read this, and this is my opinion. So I read this one. If buyer cannot secure finance, they have to prove to you why they no longer qualify.
Yeah.
If they qualify, like in your case, they qualified to Paul's case, they still qualified, so they didn't have, the lender just sucked. That's different. Like I read this as the lender needs to prove to you why they no longer qualify to purchase this property. And then, yeah, they're gonna get their earnest money back, but there's at least a burden of proof on the lender to say they no longer qualify for this mortgage. And then they're gonna get their earnest money. That's my take.
And what if in somewhere else in the purchase agreement, it says the $10,000 earnest money is non-refundable?
And it doesn't, none of this matters. I would still put a written, so there's another thing we're not talking about for written statement.
Yeah.
That these lenders, if they've got 100 files on their desk, they're looking at the end date, and it's either the closing date or it's a written statement date, one or the other.
Yeah.
And if you're working with Wells Fargo and you do not have a written statement, you will not close on time. And it's across the board.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad idea just to at least give the lender that, but you're making a good point of,
Yeah, I mean,
to provide it, but.
for sure. I mean, again, you handle this how you see fit for your business. I think Derek's point, right? That you usually would say earnest money is non-refundable effective
Right.
after the inspection or upon final acceptance or whatever. So again, that might get into too much legalese if it's properly written, it could supersede this for sure. So that's just my take on it, right? Like, I think with the lending standards getting better, certainly if there's a poor qualified buyer is one thing, but most buyers are closing right now, right? In the in this current market. Most buyers, the lenders are pretty good, the buyers are pretty good, they're vetted pretty good. So I just, and you know, again, on the flip side, we kind of stemming from our previous conversation. They skipped inspection, you know, whatever, but they have this. Like I tell my, like, we don't want this to happen, but like this is in here. Like this gives buyers just a free, if they know this, in my opinion, it's like it just gives free buyers a free pass not to show up to closing and get all their earnest money back. That's my take. So that's where I, so in my personal opinion, like obviously what's best for the seller, in my opinion, is this, and of course, forfeited to seller. This refunded to buyer would be second, and this is actually third, in my opinion. Again, you guys, as the listing agent, correct. As a buyer, I will gladly do this every single time. And I'll put in a week or so before closing, because as we already talked about, the seller is not going to cancel if the written statement's delivered. I mean, 99.9%. If the written statement's not delivered a week before closing, they're not going to cancel. You are so close to the finish line, they're going to do everything they can to figure it out. They're going to get it. As long as we're on track, it's going to close.
As long as we're talking about that, what if you're scheduled to close today and you know you're not able to close today? And the seller won't agree to close on Friday. Like agree, like sign something. Then what happens?
Is the buyer ready?
The seller doesn't want to close, the buyer's all set.
Is the buyer set?
Probably not. I mean, the buyer would be ready, but like the funds aren't ready.
So is it the buyer's fault or the seller's
The
fault?
buyer's fault.
So what, if you're representing this, are you representing the seller or the buyer?
Buyer.
Yeah, I'm representing the seller. So when you can't close, okay? And my seller says, yeah, I'm not gonna wait any longer. I'm gonna seek legal counsel after, because first of all, I didn't like Derek and I don't like his buyer, and they're screwing us over and we're moved out of our house. So the number one thing I'm gonna do is make sure that my seller is at that closing at the time it's scheduled, because you do have to, and I'm not an attorney, but you do have to show that they were there and they were there at the time to close on schedule. And then after that, you know, whatever happens, do the same thing with the buyer. If the seller says, hey, I'm not closing because, you know, we had an issue with the final walkthrough or whatever, make sure your buyer goes to that closing to show that that buyer was prepared and able to close at the time. So.
Right.
Then.
So then, like tomorrow morning, my buyer's lender says, gosh, you know what, we're gonna be able to close on Friday.
Yep.
And I contact you and you know, you start going down that road and you're like, well, no, the seller's starting legal proceedings to cancel the contract.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been of the mind that like, well, let's just give them the chance to close, and they're going to close, because why would you close or why would you not close rather than,
You go through the legal process,
But-
that much money to probably get this.
right,
But you still.
What, 15-day right to cure?
right.
15-day right to cure. The buyer can't perform on closing day.
30, if there's a title problem,
30 days.
What if
It's not a title
non-title?
problem, it's the buyer problem,
Finance problem.
financing.
yeah, there's no
There's no time limit on it.
There's no time.
There's no time limit on it. So that's, you know, why I talked to John, because we've had a few that didn't go through, not because of our fault, the other side. And you're still under contract until the contract gets canceled. Even if you miss it.
Yeah, but I think if someone doesn't show up to closing, I believe it's a statutory cancellation. I think there's a time limit because someone didn't perform on the contract at the date it was supposed to close. So you're in basically a statutory cancellation period. Again, I'm not the broker, but I believe there's a 14 or 15 day, if it's the buyer, that you have 15 days that's like a right to cure.
Yes, and that I believe is if you file statutory.
Sure.
cancellation.
Like if they want to continue to
Once
buy.
one party says,
Yep.
you know, here's the statutory
For sure.
cancellation, they file that,
Yep.
then the.
If they still intend to purchase it, correct. Yep. Obviously, there's a lot of variables. If seller no longer wants to sell, or buyer no longer wants to buy, or what happens to earnest money, what legal rights they have. Obviously, if that doesn't happen, I mean, it's attorney immediately. I mean, we're not handling it from that then on.
The moral of the story is call Jim or John.
Or give them your best attorney's phone number to have them call that. So I mean, any good point. I mean, any thoughts, questions on this? I mean, again, this is just what I do and how I've interpreted this and spent time in that. Feel free to have more questions or refute that. If you disagree, by all means, I'm very much open to it. So. Cool.
Thank you for sharing that. That was different than my understanding.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's like
Absolutely.
kind of buried deep in there, deep in the contract. So, cool. Anything else? Anything else spark anything? What time is it? Oh, we're right on time. Okay, I've got a couple of things, but for next time. Wants, needs, anything having coming up? Any specific buyer needs?
We have a listing coming on Tuesday, should be available. 6406 Grandview in Eden Prairie, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, little split level for $430.
Good.
Yeah, I have a listing coming on May 9th. It will be coming soon. It is a 5-bedroom, 2-bath in Orono, just down the street from Orono High School. Listing price $519.
I have a client who is looking for West Metro or outside of the West Metro, actually. Acreage, if there is any, up to 650. They need an outbuilding with a 14-foot door. Nothing else will work. So if anybody knows of anything, we've been looking for a long time.
Sherry has a listing on Cross Lake that's gonna go live next week. She'll have professional photos and stuff. So the Whitefish chain, it's on quiet water leading right to Cross Lake. It's beautiful views. It's 275 feet. The list price is $1.5 million. It's 275 feet of lakeshore. There's 5 docks. There's a house, 4,000 square foot house that's 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. Then there's a guest cottage that's 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, full kitchen. Then there's a secondary structure that's a garage. And there's also about $150,000 worth of boats and jet skis and other toys and stuff that could be purchased separately as well. It's extraordinary. Once we put it on the market, it's gonna go right away. So if you got someone, these are great, Twin Cities sellers. They would sell it pre-market just to make it simple. So awesome.
Good one. Nice.
Thank you, Rick. I also have another listing coming in Maple Grove. It's 4 bedrooms, 5 baths. It's a modified 2-story in a cul-de-sac, and it's a $550.
Cool.
I have some buyers looking in the Andover area, Andover School District, 580 and below.
Cool.
Feel free to send those to Lydia.
Yeah. Anything else? Send to Lydia. We'll get them out there. So thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.